Hello guys, welcome back. So in the last lecture, you have learned about Flexbox. So in this lecture, we are going to learn CSS grid. Okay, it is also equally important as that of Flexbox. Okay, in CSS. So in CSS, Flexbox and CSS grid are very important, and you need to concentrate more. Okay, so if you remember, in the last lecture, in the Apple page, we have created Flexbox, isn't it? So now inside Apple page, after Flexbox, I will create CSS grid. Okay, fine. So here it is flexbox.html. So I'm going to create a new file and name it as CSSgrid.html. Fine, enter. So I'm going back to apple.html and here I'm going to make it as csgrid.html. csgrid.html. Fine. So I'm going to save this. I'm sorry, I'm going to make it as a CSS grid. Okay. And here instead of hash, I'm going to give CSS grid.html. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to reload this. You can see after Flexbox, we have CSS grid. And whenever I press that, you can see a blank page. Okay. So instead of writing each and every code again, I'll just go to Flexbox. And what I'll do now, I'll just copy paste the whole thing. Okay. And I'm going to paste it in here. And now just going to what's this EL. Okay, fine. So I'm going to delete all the extra content here. Okay. So yeah. So this is background color. I want to keep all the background colors. Okay, except background color, I'll delete everything else. Fine. So yeah. Yes, inside container. Yeah. I'll keep background color as it is. Okay. Inside container, I'll keep background color, but I'll delete margin, font size, and font family. Okay, all the three I'll delete, and here I delete this. Okay, fine. So I want to save this, and I'll just reload this page. Yeah, this is what it is, isn't it? And something. Just give me a second. Yeah, I'll keep the font size and everything. Okay, I'll just delete this flex box thing. Font family, font size. Fine. And the margin is 40 pixels. So what happens if I delete this? Fine, no margin now. Okay, so what I have done, I have created a new page called cssgrid.html and I have copy pasted the whole thing of Flexbox here and I have deleted the stylings except the background color. Okay, so instead of Flexbox, I'm going to write CSS grid so that the heading, the title will be different now. If I reload this, you can see CSS grid now. Fine. Yes. So what do we do now? So if you remember, whenever we have used flexbox, we have written display something, right? So now I'll in the container I'll write for using CSS grid. I'm sorry. Okay, CSS grid. So from here on, we are going to use CSS grid. So now what I'm going to do, display in grid. Okay, fine. Yeah, just give me a second. I want to do another thing. What's that? I'm just going to copy this division. Okay, and I'm going to paste the division here. Okay, so instead of Jelf Study is an easy platform to learn online, I'm just going to give the numberings. Okay, so I'm going to give 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the 8th one, right? 8. Okay, so I'm going to save this. Okay, and I'm going to reload this. What's happening now? We have this thing and this thing. Okay, so there are two things getting displayed over here. Okay, if you want to give some space, you can break the statements here. Okay, suppose here you can write break so that we'll see the difference now. Yeah, so this is a uh, division, a single division, and this is a single division. Fine. So now what we'll do, I want to make changes inside this. Okay, I don't want to show you this thing. So what I'll do, I'll not delete this whole thing, or I'll not comment out this. Okay, what I'll do, I'll just write display none. So here what we'll just do, I'll make these divisions into two separate divisions. Okay, so I'll make this class as container 1 and I'll make this as container 2. So here I'll just copy this and I'll paste it here, and I'll make one thing as container 1 and the okay, I'll make this as container 1 and I'll make this as container 2. Fine. And here I'll make sorry display to be none. Okay, so I'll just save this and I'll reload this. Now you can see the second container has gone because we have kept display none. So I haven't taught you this display none until now, but whenever you want a single container not to be visible on the web screen, then you can name it to a class and you can give that class as display none, so that all that container will not be available on the web page. Okay, yeah, so I have made this to none, so don't bother about this right now, but for this we'll make some changes now. So inside this is container 1, so inside container 1 I'm going to start with the CSS grid. So how to start? For the starting, you need to write display to be grid. Keep it in mind, if you want to use CSS grid, you need to keep display as grid. Just save this and reload this. So there is no change, even you have written display grid, right? Even though you have written display grid, there is no changes in here. But if you remember, in flex properties, after writing the display, then you used to see the difference, like self study is and like the horizontal row, but there is no change in CSS grid. So when it will change? So what's the basic difference between CSS grid and flexbox? So assume flexbox as one dimensional. Okay, then the CSS grid would be two dimensional. Okay, so if it is two dimensional, it's three dimensional. Okay, so CSS grid is something more advanced when compared to flexbox. So in CSS grid, even if you write display grid, there will not be any changes. You need to specify how many columns and how many rows you require to make the changes. Okay, so you need to specify them. So how to specify them? So in order to specify those, you need to write grid template column. Okay, so you need to specify how many columns. So these are rows. Okay, each thing is a row, and these are columns. Okay, like this. The horizontal is rows, the vertical are columns. So you need to specify how many columns you want. Okay, so now what happens now, inside CSS display grid, you will be having grid template column. Okay, grid template column. How many you would have? 250 pixels. Suppose you should specify some, pixels. So I'll save this and I'll reload this. Here you can see this is the background bucket. Okay, or container one, you can say. You already know the use of container and how the background color has been changed to container. You all know everything, because if you have watched the flexbox, then it's not necessary for you to you know take things one by one. Okay, you can understand it very easily. So here you can see this is of different size, and this is of different size because we have given large pixels to this and small pixels to this, and here you have given only two columns. So that is why you have only two columns here. Okay, so if you specify three columns, there will be three columns. If you specify four columns, there will be four columns. Okay, so that's what we're going to do now. This is 250 pixels and this is 150 pixel. So I'll make two 250 pixel rows, I mean columns, and two 150 pixel columns. So 250 pixel, 250 pixels, and then 150 pixels. I'm sorry, 150 pixels and 150 pixels columns. Okay, I'm just going to save this and I'm going to reload this. Here you can see there are two 250 columns, 250 pixel columns, and two 150 pixel columns. You can see here on your own, isn't it? Here if you you know decrease it too much, you need to scroll here. Okay, fine, just expand this. So here you can see the difference with your naked eye here. These are very large 250 pixels columns, and these are 150 pixel columns. So these are the columns. So you have given four columns. So there are four columns in total here. Okay, it's fine until now. So you can change the pixel size according to your wish. Okay, so if you want 200 pixel, 200 pixel, I'm just showing how it would change. Okay, so let's make it 100 pixels and also 100 pixels. I'll just save this and I'll reload this. You can see 200, 200, 100 and 100. So here you can observe that the online you know um, is a bit more to the given pixels, so that it's only covered half in the background color. So the content would be extended but the background would be same. So you need to see those calculations. If you want, you can increase 10 pixels more so that both the pixels will get increased. Both the rows in that column would be increased. So now what I'll do, instead of pixels here, I'll just use one FR. Okay, I'll just save this third row and I'll reload this. Here you can see now what's happening. The remaining container, okay, the remaining container one space is getting occupied by this one FR of the third row. Okay, if you, I mean column, if you see the first column, second column and fourth column are fixed. Okay, this is of 100 pixels, this is of 100 pixels. Sorry, I think it's 200, right? Yeah, the first column is of 200 pixels, the second column is of 200 pixels, and the last column is of 100 pixels. But the third column is getting increased as we increase the page. Here you can see. Okay, so here if you give 100 pixels, and here if you give 1 fr fraction, you can say. Okay, so if you reload this page and if you try to increase, the last column will be increased automatically. Okay, and these are fixed because we have given fixed. So 1 fr, wherever you use 1 fr, that will be increased according to the screen size. So this is not fixed, so the remaining columns are fixed. So yeah, so what's next? So this is with 1 fr. Okay, so what's 2 fr, 3 fr? Yeah, we are going to see that in a few moments, because you will be having some doubts regarding that. But if you also want to make some changes for the rows instead of columns, these are columns, if you want to make some changes for rows, you can very well do that. Okay, so how to do that? Instead of column, here you can give grid template rows. So what are those? So if I give 300 pixels and 200 pixels, for suppose 200, suppose, and if I save this and if I reload this, here you can see the first row is of 300 pixels, the second row is of 200 pixels. You can now see the first row is 300 pixels and second row is 200 pixels. So in this way you can uh, you know make changes to the rows also. Okay, so these are columns, you can make some changes to the columns, and these are rows, you can make some changes to the rows also. Fine. So until now you came to know what are template, columns and rows. Fine. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to explain you the fr things. Okay, so let me give this 300, 200. Okay, and if I give all as 1 fr, I'll give only these two as 1 fr. Okay, so what happens, the first two are fixed, the last two are not fixed, they will increase equally. So the equal importance are given to the last two rows, they'll increase, I mean the last two columns, sorry. So the last two columns will increase according to the screen size. Okay, so what happens if I give 1 fr to everything? So you have guessed it right. Okay, so all the rows will increase equally according to the screen size. Yeah, here you can see they are increasing equally. Okay, so what happens if I give 2 fr somewhere? Suppose here I'll give 2 fr. So what's this indicates? So here, if every column increases one time, the third column increases twice. You have already learned this type of things in flex property, I mean flex box, right? So there you have learned this type of things. So every other column increases one time, so this column increases two times. You can see the third column would be much more when compared to the rest. Sorry, I'll just reload this. Yeah, here you can see the clear difference. The first row, second row and the last row, sorry, I'm getting rows. Okay, so I'm used to rows, columns, I'm very sorry. So the first column, second column and the last column are equal, so the third column is twice when compared to either first or second or the last column. Okay, So third column is twice. So it will increase twice when compared to the other. Okay. So this is what the 2FR. So if you hear 3FR, it would be thrice, 4 times, 5 times, 3, 6 times, okay, and so on. If you change there. So what if you give 3FR here, if you give 1FR here, so what happens? The first column would be increased thrice when compared to the other things. Here you can see, I'll reload this. You can see the first column is increasing rapidly, the thrice when compared to the other columns. It's fine now, right? So what I'll do, I'll just give, 1FR, 1FR and everything. Okay. So 1FR, 1FR, and here I'll give auto. Instead of FRs, I'll give auto. So what are the changes now? You can see. Yeah. So whenever you give auto, so what happens here? I have given FRs. So everything is getting increased according to the screen size. But for here auto, it will be fixed and it will be up to the content. Okay. So it will check for this whole column. It will check which content is more occupying space. Okay. And according to that content, the background color will get cut. I mean the what are these classes el. Okay, these classes will be having that much background styling only. Okay, so auto means this. Okay, fr means it will getting increased, it is getting increased, and auto means is getting fixed according to the content available in there. Fine. So until now you just came to know about grid template column and grid template row and what are fractions and auto means. Okay, now what we can do, we can give some gap. So want the gap between the columns and rows. So how to specify or give that gaps? Okay, so there is some column gap and row gap. Okay, so I'll just give 1FR again. Okay, 1FR. Fine, just save this and I'll reload this. Here you can see everything is getting occupied with same space. Okay, so now I'll just specify gap. Let the gap be 30 pixels for now. Suppose I'll just save this and I'll reload this. Here you can see, so in between every uh, class you can see 30 pixels gap. Okay, for both rows and columns. Let me increase this. Yeah, you can see 30 pixels gap in between all the classes. Okay, inside a single container one. So this is how you will give rows, columns, auto, fractions, and the gap. But the thing is, I want us, the different gap for um, you know rows and different gap for columns. Okay, the 30 pixels is same for both rows and columns. The gap between rows and columns, all the containers is 30 pixels. But I want us different gaps for rows and different gaps for columns. So what you need to do, I'll just comment this out. Okay, fine, and I'll specify column gap and row gap. If I want column gap, let the column gap be, you know okay, let it also be 30 pixels. Okay, so columns means these things, the vertical things. You can see now the vertical things, in between all those vertical things you are having 30 pixels gap. The same way you have row gap, let the row gap be 60 pixels so that we can differentiate between both of the gaps. And reload this. Yeah, here you can see in between every row we are seeing 60 pixels. Fine. So in this way you can give separate, I mean different gaps to rows and columns. Okay, yeah, I have given everything as fractions, so according to the screen size getting increased. Fine. So now you came to know how to give the gaps. Okay, what's gap, column gap, and also row gap. So now what we need to do, um, so I have given 4 columns with one FR, one FR, one FR, and one FR. So now what I want is, I don't want this one FR to be given 4 times. If you have 100 columns, you should give one FR, one FR, one FR 100 times for 100 columns, isn't it? I don't want that. Okay, so how to get rid of this line? Okay, instead of writing this line, okay, you have a keyword called repeat. Okay, so how to use that? So instead of grid template column 1FR, 1FR, and 1FR, I'll use like grid template column. So repeat how many times? 4 times with the sizes 1FR. Okay, common for all the 4 rows. I'm sorry, all the 4 columns. Okay, the 1FR is common for all the 4 columns, 4 comma 1FR. So I'll save this, I'll reload this, everything remains same. Here you can see. So if you have 100 columns, you give instead of 4, you can give just 100. So there is no need to repeat 1FR 100 times. Okay, so this is an easy way. Okay, so for the rows also I'll just give 1FR and 1FR here. Okay, instead of 300 pixel, 200 pixel, I'll just choose according to the size. Fine. So it will automatically increase and decrease according to the size. Fine. So these are common. Now it's easy to look. It's also a better. Okay. So what we'll do now, for the rows means these things, right? For these things I'll make, instead of 1FR, I'll make the second row as auto, suppose. So what changes can we see now? It's already auto, right? The column is already auto, so you will not find any changes. So when can you see change? If you make it 200 pixels and you make it auto, now what happens? This is 200 pixels and this is auto. Fine. So this is 1FR and this is auto. So everything is fine now. Yeah. So you can specify height. Okay. Now how to do that? So came to know how to change the sizes for rows, for columns, how to give some gap for rows and columns, how to automatically increase according to the screen size. You have learned a lot of things now. Now it's time for the height. So instead of doing all these things, you know so before going to height, let me clarify this thing. Okay, if you have height separately for a single element, for element 3, suppose this yellow block, let the height be, so okay, for now let me delete these two things. Let me delete this. Okay, for now, for the rows, and let me show you this thing. Okay, I just forget to keep it at the start. Okay, so let the height be somewhat around 150 pixels. Okay, so let me first comment this out and let me show you what changes I have made. Okay, just save this and reload this. So there is no change now. Okay, so I have made this yellow height to be 150 pixels now. Okay, I'll just make that to be 150 pixels height. Yeah, now reload this. See, if you have increased a height for a single row, all the elements in that row will be increased to 150 pixels automatically. So this is the default property. If you make a single height vary, every height in that row would be changed. Fine. So this is 150 pixels height. Okay. So now let me do this. Okay. Let me, here for columns, grid template columns. For the grid template columns, not columns, we have already written columns, so rows. For the grid template rows, let me give one FR and one FR. Okay, let me make some changes. Let me reload this. So what happens now, you can see the first, according to the size of the first row, the second row is also getting changed. If you keep here 200 pixels for the first row, the second row will also be 200 pixels. So because we have specified here whatever the fraction of the first row, the second row will also be the same fraction. Why is first row 150 pixels? Because we have changed only one height to be 150 pixels. That is why it is also 150 pixels. Okay, fine. I'll just reload this. Here you can see the change. Both are changed to 150 pixels because two should be equal fractions. Fine. So I'll make this second row to be auto now. So what happens now? Just I'll reload this page. Here you can see the second row is auto. So it's getting, you know, the size. If I make this auto, what happens? The same 150 pixels will be there. So let me make it one fraction, and let me make it also one fraction so that both will be 150 pixels altogether. So now you came to know, right? What's the difference between auto and FR in terms of rows? Columns is very clear, right? So for rows, I have changed the height of a single row, so that's why all the rows has been changed. So I have given one FR and one FR so that those two will be equal rows, equal height. Two rows will be equal height, and I have changed this to auto so that it's back to its normal size. So you now came to know the fractions, auto, and all the things. So now what I'll do, I'll give height to be something. Okay, like let the okay of the container, height of the container be 90 pixels. Okay, let me save this. Let me reload this. So what happens? You can see the background. It's 90 pixels height. Okay, so instead of 90 pixels, since we have so many complications. Okay, so why you may have some doubt. This is one fraction and this is one fraction, and why isn't it the same height as that of the first row? It's because it's not in the container one. Container one is up to here itself. Okay, you can see the container one is not getting included over here. Okay, so the container one height is only 90 pixels. Okay, but the height of this is 150 pixels. So let me make it 500 pixels height. Okay, height would be 500 pixels. Let me reload this. Here you can see the height is 500 pixels, and now the height is, this height is more than 150 pixels. Okay, by visualization only you can see here the an is 150 pixels here, but the rest of the things is getting increased because we have given a 1FR, and 150 pixels is getting overridden by 1FR for the yellow block. So the yellow block is only 150 pixels, the rest is having 1FR. Okay, so if you increase this height 500 pixels, this height will also gets increased. Okay, So now it's very clear for 1FR also, right? So we haven't given auto. Okay, we have specified a single height so that all the other rows or columns, these are rows and these are columns is also getting increased. Now you came to know what is height. Now the thing is, this is something very interesting now. You know, um, if you have used your any Windows phone in your childhood, okay, now the Windows phones are no more. Okay, we are using iPhones and Android, but uh, in the early days, we used to have Windows phones. So if you remember that, if you have Windows 8.1 or Windows 10 on your mobile phone, there is something like you can customize your home page. If you have this app, self study app, if you want it to be more size, you can get it up to here, this self study, and you can make an to be smaller. You can make this platform to go up to here or here. So you can make those changes by using this CSS grid. Okay, so if you do not understand, just now follow this class or lecture. Okay, you just inspect the page. So here in the elements, just select this grid thing here. Okay, there is a grid option here. Select that. So after selecting that grid option, you can see here whenever you hover over this, let me make it like this. Yeah, now you can see that you have some numberings for each and everything. So this is for row, this is for column, this is for column, 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 and this is for row, row, this is for row, and this is for column. Here according to the here you can see a small symbol whether it's a row or a column, isn't it? So according to that, you can visualize which is row and which is column. Fine. So you have some numberings. So this is very much these numberings are very much important. So what you need to do, you just go to the elements here. I'm sorry, go to the elements, and here you have a grid option here. Select that. So after selecting that grid option, you can see the numberings. So according to these numberings, you can resize each and every uh, you know um, each and every class. Okay, this is a class, this is a class, this is a class. So you can do those things. Okay, so how to resize those things? So you have an option to do that. So how to do that? uh, you know if you want something to be like suppose you have, let me do this. Okay, this is the row, this is the column. So if you want this self study or this two from here to here, okay, whole thing, this two from here to here. So how will you do that? So you don't want learn, you should have learn, but you want this two from here to here. Okay, so how will you do that? So if you want this from here to here in this row, what you will do, you will just give this 2 is el6. So go to el6. Okay, so go to el6. Where is that? Here is el6. So for this el6, this 2 is el6. So for this el6, what you will do, you will give the column. This is a column, right? Column and row, right? So for this 2, let me make um, grid column you will have two things, grid column and grid row. Okay, for suppose sorry, grid column and grid row. So using these two keywords we can define these things. Okay, so these are the columns things, these are the row things. Okay, so here if you want this two to be from here to here, so these are columns, right? -4 and -2 are columns. Okay, so and here 2 and 4 are columns, isn't it? So I want this 2 from 2 to 4, so like this. Okay, this size, the two box sizes. Okay, from 2 to 4, so I'll write a grid column to 2 to 4, grid column. So from 2 by 4, fine, from 2 to 4. So let me reload this. Here you can see it's from 2 to 4, fine. So again this online came to down. Okay, fine. So like this you can make some changes. Okay, so this 2 has been extended to 2 spaces. Okay, so now you have got some clarity, right? Fine. In the same way, you can also specify rows. So go back to elements here, press on grid, and you will have some numbers. Sorry, so you will have some numbers now again. So if you want this 2 from here to here, so here the row is 1, from 1 to 3 if you want 2. Okay, so 1 by 3 you can write grid row. So the grid row would be 1 by 3. So how will it be now? Just save this and reload this. You can see that 2 is from here to here. It's so big, right? So I'll just delete this thing. Okay, I'll reload this. It's back to normal. If I want this 2 instead of here, I want this 2 to be here. So how can we do that? So it's very simple. I have just explained you how to do that. So I want this 2. Sorry, I want this. Yeah. If I want this 2 instead of here, I want this here. So in which row I want it? I want it in the first row from 1 to 2. So here from 1 to 2 you can write grid row from 1 to 2, 1 by 2. Fine. You can reload this. You can see the 2 went to the top. Okay, so you can keep these things wherever you want. Okay, fine. So let me make okay, fine. So if I want something to be in the whole row, okay, so if I want everything to be in that row, suppose not like that, I'll explain it in a different way. Just go to elements and press on grid and just see that numberings. So you want this and to be at the end. Okay, till the end you want this and, but the thing is you don't know how many columns are present. Okay, you don't know how many columns are present, but you want this and to be till the last column, not an. Okay, let it be easy. Okay, you want this easy to be till the end, but you don't know. Okay, you don't know this length. Okay, you don't know how many columns are present, but you want the easy to be till the last column. So how will you do that? This easy is present in the second column, isn't it? from second column to the last column. You don't know what's the last column. Okay, so what will you do? You will then do grid column for this easy. What's easy? Easy is EL4. Go to EL4 and grid column from where? Grid column from 2 to the last. Okay, 2 to last. So grid column from 2 by, so if you want the last till last, it would be -1. -1 is last. Okay, so just reload this. So you can see now easy is from 2 to till last. Okay, you don't know how many columns are present. Okay, it will be present until the last column. Okay, fine. So you came to know the use of -1. I'll just comment this out. Okay, so in order to explain you some more functionalities. Okay, fine. So now you don't want all the numberings. Okay, so just press on grid. Okay, you don't want the numberings. Okay, you have this easy at 2. Okay, you want to extend this one more or two more or three more. If you have an, okay, suppose an, where is an? An is EL3, element 3. So here is EL3. So you have this an. So this is grid column. Okay, so this grid column, let it be. So and right, so you started this over here, one at one column, first column. So from first column you don't want to specify second column or third column or fourth column or anything. You want um, you know, three more columns. Okay, so what you will do, you will write a grid column from one. How many you want span? If you give span 3, what happens? You can see now. Save this and reload this. Okay, so it's in 3 columns. Okay, first column, second column, and third column. It's totally in 3 different columns. If you give span 2, okay, from first column, okay, till the end of second column, it will be present, first column and second column. Okay, and if you give it a 4, okay, what happens? It will be in 4 columns, span 4. Okay, what happens now? Just reload this. It will be until 4 columns, first column, second column, third column, and fourth column, the entire row basically. Okay, so if you know the starting point, you can just specify how many columns you want it to extend or expand. Okay, you could specify. So it's also present in rows. Okay, I am only explaining columns. You try to do the rows on yourself. Okay, it will be a lot of time taking if I explain both rows and columns like this. Okay, I'll just explain column. You can make the same experiments on rows like this: first row, second row, third row. You can extend this span to, so that 2 rows will be extended. Okay, you can see a lot of things then. Fine. So this is how you will specify the things in this way. Okay, so now what I'll do, so this is how you will make a row, different rows, different columns, the sizes. Okay, and how you will give the heights and you will give gaps and everything you have learned, almost everything. Okay, so from now on I'll tell you how to make the changes for these content. Until now you have seen the whole container, but inside that container we have contents, right? This content. So how to make changes to those content, I'll explain you now. Okay, fine. So now what I'll do, I'll display this container to none. Display to none. So you need to remove this display grid, okay, in order to make this display none. Okay, you have two displays over here and one display. I'll just remove this thing. Fine. So this display is getting overridden by this display. So in order to use one display, you need to comment out the other display. Fine. So now let me do these things. Okay, let all have the background colors. Fine. So let me remove this grid row, grid column, and everything. Okay, I just want these column colors. Okay, fine. So let me make this. Yeah, let me remove this grid column. Fine. So everything is normal. And now I have this display. I'll make this display to be grid. Fine. And also after making the display grid, I'll make this columns to be for 1FR. Copy this and I'll paste it over here. I'll reload this. Here you can see everything is getting 1FR. Okay, and everything has some height. Fine until now. So now I'll make this change here. Okay, so here I'll write justify content. Okay, justify content to be center. So in this I'm going to make some changes again. Okay, so I don't want 8. Okay, I'll just make it to 6. Okay, for the simplicity. Now we'll understand the thing. And now instead of making everything to be auto, okay, I'll just give the rows and columns a different heights. Okay, so column, these are columns and this is rows. Fine. So the columns would be I'll make 6, right? So 3 into 2 grid. Okay, so 3 columns and 2 rows, and let the columns be like 125 pixels suppose. Okay, and let it be 200 and let the other be 125 like this. Okay, again 125, and I'll make the rows. Let the um, rows be 250 pixels and the other is 100 pixel. Okay, fine. So let me see this now. Yeah, fine. So here you can see the background is getting changed. Okay, so for that what I'll do, I'll give some width and height to this. Okay, so the width would be rows. I mean these 2 rows, these 3 columns. So the columns are 125 plus 200 plus 200. Let me do some math. 200 200. Okay, fine. 200 and 150. Okay, so I'll make some changes like below this background color or before this grid. I'll just give some width and height. Let me give the width to be like 700 pixels. Okay, and the height to be something around 600 pixels. Okay, so let me reload this. Yeah, here you can see the background will not change. Okay, according to size, because we have fixed the width and height of the background, I mean of the container too. Okay, for the container too I fixed the width and height, so it's fine until now. So I'm sorry, I'll just remove this align content. Okay, yeah, this is what I have done the mistake. I'll reload this. Yeah, this basically how it is at the beginning. Okay, fine. So now everything looks great. We have the fixed width and we have the fixed height and everything. Here you can see it is 150 pixels and the remaining things are this height 250 pixels. So this one is 150 pixels and these two are 250 pixels and these are 100 pixels height. The width would be, this is 125, this is 200, and this is 125 again. Until now it's clear. Okay, yeah. And now I'll justify the content to be a center. Justify content to be center. Fine. I'll save this. I'll reload this. Yeah. So now since I have justified the content to center, everything became to center. Okay. Okay. Now, so this is what the center keyword will do now to us. Okay. So if you give justify content to center, everything would be center. And I'll give justify content. Okay. Justify content to space between. Okay. So what happens? Space between. Now see. Yeah. So everything is getting the space between them. Okay. So the justify content to the center means everything comes to center. And if you give space between, the first row will be at the start, the last row will be at the end, and the remaining rows will have the equal spaces like this. Okay. If you have another thing, you would have that here and here with equal spaces in between all the four. Okay. I hope you understand this. Okay. So this is what the justify content will do. I'll just make it, comment this out because I'll explain you some more things. Okay. So now I'll keep align content. Okay. Now align content. So I'll align the content to center. Okay. So what happens now? I'll align the content. So if I reload this, so if you use align content, everything comes to the middle. Okay. So you have equal spaces in between, around them, and this is in between. So we'll mostly use the align content to center. Okay. And if you want some gap, you can specify some gap to be 50 pixels for suppose. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. So the gap between everything is quite interesting. Everything, the gap between each and every element is 50 pixels. Okay. Now I'll use instead of center. Okay. So I'll comment this out. Now I'll use align content. Instead of center, I'll use space between. Okay. So what happens now? You can reload and you can see now. If I give align content space between, it's giving space like this top row is getting to the top and bottom is getting to the bottom, and it's fine now. Okay. And you can also give align content to end end, and everything is getting to the end, and you can give center. Yeah, you have already seen what is center, right? So you have seen now space between and end, and we'll mostly use center. Okay. For our daily usage, we'll use center, but you just need to know we have space between and start, and if you hover over here, you will have many options, right? So you can try each and every option there. Okay. So I'll give, okay, okay, fine until now. So justify content and align content is fine. So I'll give now, you need to know another thing, that is align items. Okay. Align items. Align items to center. Fine. So what happens now? You can see every item is getting to the center. Center. Centered, centered, and centered. Since this is 150 pixels height, you cannot see any changes. Okay. Let it be. So every item is at the center. Okay. So align items is at the center. So now justify items, make justify items to center. Okay. So justify items to center. So the width will also become justify to the center. Justify items. Fine. Center. Just save this and reload this. Now you can see everything is at center. Okay, everything is at center. Here 3 is also at center. You can see the height is not changed because we have fixed the height, but the width became to the center according to the content. Fine. So it's getting adjusted according to the content. Okay, so you now came to know what is justify items, align items, okay, and align content, grid template, I mean justify content, okay, and the gap between them. So these are the basic usage of all these. Okay, so if you want to use for separate, so let me comment this out. Okay, let me reload this. Yeah, so you want a single element to be have align content, align items, just 5 items. You can very well do that. I'll show you for el3 now. For el3 I'll you like align self, okay, to the align self to the end, suppose. So what changes you will see on the third, this one here, you can see what's this align self to the end. So it came down. Okay, it is present here but it's at the end now. Okay, so you can do that, and you can have justify self. Okay, this is align self. You can have justify self to the end again. Okay, you can reload this. Yeah, what's happening, it's at the end but it's getting to the 3 is getting to the center, or not with the height, with respect to the width. And now if you make it to center and center, now let me show you align self to center. So what will happen now, it should be at the center. Yeah, it's at the center. Fine. And now if I want self, justify self to be center, okay, what happens, what changes you can see. Yeah, center. So in this way you can fix each and everything to the center. So you have learned about CSS grid a lot, isn't it? So it's a two-dimensional thing. You can, so it's more advanced when compared to Flexbox. Okay, so we'll use this CSS grid in nowadays, okay, more frequently when compared to Flexbox. But both Flexbox and CSS grid are very important. You need to practice in order to get perfection. Okay, so these are very simple things. Okay, but another thing, guys, keep in mind, whenever you know you listen, it will be very easy, but when you practice you will face those difficulties. Okay, you need to keep every keyword in mind. Okay, so no need to by heart, practice, it will automatically registered in your mind. Fine. So what I suggest, this CSS grid, practice more so that you will be perfect, okay, in this content. Fine. So that's it, guys. So with this you have finished your CSS. Okay, so I hope everything is clear. If not, listen to this lecture once again. So yeah, guys, happy learning.